They called him Gaius, a name whispered in the halls of power, then screamed in the pits of Rome. The Sun King is merely a mask, a universal lie painted over the face of ultimate, unbridled power.
We speak of Louis, but we see the terrifying truth of Caligula. This is not history. This is a forbidden truth. Rome believed its emperors to be gods, and one emperor decided to believe it too. From the glorious campaigns of his father, Germanicus, he inherited the people's love. But power is a poison, brewed in the silver cups of the Senate, and offered to a mind already fragile.
The Golden Age was over. The stage was set for a nightmare robed in purple.
He began as a hope, a young flower, blooming from a dead. But the whispers of the gods had already begun their dark work, burrowing into the soft tissue of his ambition. Power gave him license, paranoia gave him clarity, and fear gave him everything else he desired.
The court held its breath. Every gesture, every word was a potential sentence of death.
They called it divine madness. His calm was the most terrifying thing. A silent storm before the thunder. Gone. One word. The ultimate power to erase a life with a breath. The court was not a government. It was an audience, and the play was a tragedy. They had granted him this power, and now they were his first and most appreciative victims. The game was simple. Praise the monster, or become the next act of his cruelty. The costumes changed, but the role remained. The God Emperor, a parody of perfection.
The Sun King. He had stolen the light of day and used it to hide the shadows of his soul.
Vastness of the palace contained his prisoners, and the first was his own mind, a twisted affection, the precursor to a far more profound and violent possession. Ritual of the feast, a performance of normalcy in a landscape of pure madness. Even love was a weapon, the ultimate hostage. He spoke of fruit, but thought of vengeance. Every meal a negotiation. To eat was to be spared. For now. The rumors were many. The truth, a private terror known only to the Emperor. He retreated into the shadows, into the chambers where the gods... Not merely a worshipper, but a partner, a supplicant demanding an equal share of the divine.
The rituals were his own invention, a cocktail of piety and personal cruelty.
The air in the city changed. It carried the scent of fear, and his first victims were often the most sacred. An act of pure, calculated blasphemy.
The architecture mirrored the mind. Grand, beautiful, but leading only to emptiness and dazzling heights.
Isolation was his throne. the loneliness of a monster who had pushed all humanity away.
The true crime of the mirror. It showed him
the games were not for sport.
the lust for violence was insatiable.
The instrument of his will, the guard. Loyal, terrified, and utterly necessary.
Fear was the currency, and the treasury was overflowing with the terror of his subjects.
They were not tools of justice. They were art objects, crafted for the emperor's personal, twisted pleasure.
The touch of a lover. The perverse delight in the control of another's ultimate pain. Poisons were his poetry. Subtle, invisible, rewriting the fate of those who displeased him. The tear of a man who knew his end. Then came the horse. A friend, a confidante, a potential consul. True relationship. Less judgmental and far more honest than any man in Rome. The Senate, reduced to spectators, forced to debate the merits of a horse for high office.
Even the animal's gaze held a strange wisdom, a silent judge on the pathetic cruelty of man.
The steam could not cleanse the guilt. Moments of false peace. Brief lapses in the performance of the god, where the wounded child might briefly show.
He carried the scars of his terrible childhood, wounds that power never truly healed, only metastasized.
He sought the night to perform his darkest acts when the sun could not bear witness.
Conversations with the divine. A monologue delivered to a silent, judging universe.
He dared the heavens to strike him down. A challenge born of true, divine-level arrogance.
Desire was just another form of conquest, a temporary distraction from the true hunger.
None were safe from his appetite. Wives, sisters,
The value of gold meant nothing to him. The value of a soul was what he sought to crush. The charade of governance continued. The Senate was a puppet show, and the strings were invisible.
The ultimate insult. He mocked the institutions of Rome, using their respectability as his stage.
The laws were a performance, taxing the poor, honoring his horse, demanding statues of himself. Absurd, arbitrary.
His image saturated the city. A forced worship that everyone secretly Even the seers were corrupted, forced to read prophecies of glory. The one true prophecy they saw. A tyrant's end is always violent, always sudden. The darkness deepened. He sought the council of ghosts, the silent, angry spirits of those he had destroyed. The delusion was breaking. The surface of his godhood cracked, showing the terrified man beneath. A civilization's foundation, cracked by a single, insane man. The power resided not in the purple, but in the hands that held the spear. The most dangerous man in Rome was the one who could walk closest to the Sun King and still see the shadows. The moment of decision is not in the grand speech, but in the private, silent commitment to act. Even the heavens rebelled. He was marching to another speech, another performance of his divine, perfect power.
Every step was a commitment. Every breath was a denial of his own fragile mortality.
The tension was a living thing, a coiled serpent, ready to strike any moment. Final performance. The mask of the monster was never stronger than in the second before its fall.
The theater was his stage. The dark hallways, the perfect location for the final, bloody curtain call.
The Shadow Men had moved. The conspirators, quiet and deadly, were closing the net. A word of praise, the wise Sun King.
Steel emerged, the true language of the palace. Cold, honest, and final.
Thud of a god falling. The sound that Rome had been waiting years to hear.
Not one blow, but many. A collective, furious release of years of terror and humiliation.
Its final expression, not fear, but shock. The utter incomprehension of a god who believed his own myth.
And then, silence. The absolute end of the impossible nightmare.
The moment of truth. The monster was dead. But the fear, that remained. Tears of release. Years in the holding. Not all were free. The cost of tyranny is often the blood of the innocent, even after the tyrant falls. The stain on the marble. A mark not just of a death, but of a fundamental, tragic sun rose. Not for the Sun King, but for a city that had survived its own apocalypse. The news travels slowly to the pits, but freedom, even imagined, is an electrifying possibility. A new era. A new emperor. The same throne. Away. The speed of change. The memory of the monster already receding into the convenience of myth.
Trappings of the god reduced to litter. The ultimate humiliation of the tyrant.
For the people, the fear lingered like a sickness, waiting for the next fever to strike. The small things became important again. The simple. The stage is cleared. The audience is dismissed. But the power remained. The true villain was not Caligula. Power is a river, and madness is its flood. The survivors carried the memory. A haunting echo of the days when silence meant survival.
To seek wisdom, the antidote to the poison of power, often forgotten until the terror strikes again.
The lessons of the past are simple, but brutal. Absolute power.
The madness recedes into the fog of history, waiting to be rediscovered or relived. The truth is the first casualty. The lies of the new regime begin the moment the old one falls. But the light still finds the cracks. This is where the true history is buried. Not in the marble, but in the stillness of the crypt. Image they left to the ages. The noble emperor, the glorious general. But the truth leaves its mark. A tiny flaw in the perfect, polished. The
darkness of the soul is an inherited trait.
The cycle continues. The moment of death is merely the pause between one madness and the next. A new face, an old coin. The same system of commerce, loyalty, and murder.
They all lie here. The good, the mad, the great.
The weight of history is in the air. Heavy, ancient. The Sun King is dead.